for this.
Okay, so our larynx has to be controlled by nerves, right? Just like the rest of our body. If we want to kick our leg, we gotta send nerve impulses. Yeah, even yours, Ian. It's true.
Even mine?
Yeah, even
Yeah, it's a pretty nervous.
It's pretty nervous. Your nervous system? Okay. So, there's two branches of the vagus nerve that serve the voice box, right? So if we have the larynx right here. Can you guys see this picture okay?
Yes, sir.
It's kind of busy, but okay. So the yellow lines are the nerves, okay? And they come up from your brain, up here.
Never cut the yellow wire.
Our dean brought tacos if you want one.
Jeff, there are tacos.
Jeff,
Chelsea.
if you want a taco, she brought tacos.
Tacos?
Just for
Tacos.
your birthday? Just for your birthday? It's your birthday!
It is my birthday.
Jeff's birthday?
Happy birthday. All right.
Yellow nerves.
You're 21 now, you can drink.
Go to the voice box.
All right.
Just
Okay, guys. Let's work on this. Okay, so there's two nerves, right? So we get the supralaryngeal nerve, which is the one superior, which means above, right? There's two different branches of that. There's the internal and the external. The internal one, like, detects foreign objects that make you cough and releases the mucus into your vocal folds.
Basically the
Okay.
worst thing ever.
Well, if you
And the
didn't
best
cough
thing
when you had
ever.
foreign objects, you would die.
Great point.
So. Great, so that one's inside your larynx, right? And then the other one on the outside controls your CT, right? Your cricothyroid muscle, which is which one again?
The skinny-ish one.
It goes between which
The cricoid and the thyroid.
Yep, and which is responsible for what part of your voice?
It's a high, the head voice.
Head voice. Yep, good. So it tilts it and stretches it. Good. So those are those two. Now, there's the other one is the recurrent laryngeal nerve. And it departs from the vagus and the thorax down here. It controls the TA, so that's the thyroarytenoid, and the vocal fold abduction. Okay, so that's the thick one. That's your actual vocal folds. Okay. And the left branch goes under the aorta and is much longer. So if you notice, we get the superior laryngeal nerve up here that goes and controls which muscle again?
Cricothyroid.
Cricothyroid. And this one goes all the way down here and controls your TA muscles. So some people think this has to do with why we have vibrato, because our nerves are such different lengths.
So
Did
how,
I just blow your mind?
well, no, how does it, why would the nerve length contribute to vibrato?
Because it takes longer for the signal to go.
Okay, I'm having trouble seeing how the longer, synapse, whatever, makes our voice go, huh.
Because one controls your cricothyroid and one
Right.
controls your TA.
Right, so.
Okay, so this is a theory. They haven't proved it because
Right
they
on.
can't actually go in and do it. But they think that this is part of why we have vibrato. Because they're different lengths.
Cool. What's the, and is it just is there like a name for the theory, or is it just like
No,
a thing?
it's just the nerves are different lengths. And so, meaning that the nerve impulses get to the muscles at slightly different times. I mean, they move at like electrical speed, right?
Right.
So it's like super fast. But if you think about it, we're photoning really fast anyway.
Of course.
So it might be something in there that we need to, yeah. And there's probably more research that's been done on it since this book came out, but I just haven't looked at it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now we're done with all the new information, so we're gonna review. Okay? Let's go back and finish reviewing the respiration stuff, okay? So we had gotten through the first day of what we talked about all the way through breath support and breath control. And then we had to talk about secondary muscles, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, great. So we have a sternocleidomastoid, yeah? Which does what? So we're back to, this is the secondary muscles of inspiration. Okay, so we're back to the respiration chapter that we talked about. So if it's inspiring, what is it doing to your lung volume? Increasing it, right. Okay. So sternocleidomastoid, how does it increase your lung volume?
Does it look up?
Yep, good. So sterno is where?
Sternum.
Sternum, cleido, clavicle, yeah, and mastoid, yeah, up here. So it goes between that, brings up, okay. So remember that one's really for moving your head, it's not so much for inspiration, like primarily, right, but it helps, yeah.
Is there, I forget, it does, is there usually like, sorry, is the first term of, or like the name of the muscle usually where the origin is, or the insert, or does it,
It depends.
okay.
Sorry.
It's
So,
okay, I was
Yeah.
just wondering if there's an easy
to
way.
answer to your question, how does the sternocleidomastoid mastoid increase lung volume?
It raises your rib cage, right?
Because the origin is where?
The origin
Who's in the stern?
is in the sternum, yeah.
So when,
Well, okay, so when it contracts, this goes up, right? It doesn't really matter what pulls to where, because you're not gonna pull open, right? Does that make
I
sense?
just thought that it would pull towards the origin, I thought.
So it's going to pull it pulls towards the origin, but it's gonna pull your chest out,
Okay.
right? Does that make sense? Because it can't be a muscle of expiration, because if we're contracting here, we're going to increase our lung volume no matter what, right?
Okay.
Okay. That's part of the reasons why the origin assertions weren't so much important in some of these,
Yeah.
right? Because if you like go and memorize all that, and then you can confuse yourself. You know? Okay. Good. Okay, so then we had the scalene muscles. We can go back and look at some of the pictures.
Literally constrained. Oh, did it follow you?
Love.
I'm not.
Okay, so these are our scalene muscles, yeah? So these ones help your neck posture and move you around like that. But when they contract, they help raise up the rib cage, right? Cool. Okay, so we're just going through the list. Interchondral portion of the intercostals. So the intercostals do what?
Depends on if they're external or internal.
Yep, internal intercostals.
They exhale.
Yes, but if it's interchondral, so it's close inside, they actually raise up your rib cage. Remember, this is the one that I was like, I'm not really going to test you on because there's not a picture.
On the test, are we gonna be tested on like origin, insertion, etc., or like just on their main function?
You will have to identify them on a picture and know what they do.
Okay.
Okay.
So, the scalenes do raise the thorax, like,
Mm-hmm. Because they're inspiration. Yeah, you can say something like that, right? So, slightly, right? It is small, but because they're used to stabilize your neck and move your neck around, that's their primary purpose, right? But they help move your rib cage and everything. And sometimes I feel like, because when it comes to science, you have to be really, really particular about what you're talking about. And so that's why they're like all these little things that we have to talk about, because they do actually add up and make a difference at some point, right? Because if you think, oh, I'm gonna have like all this neck tension, you know, like holding that when I'm taking my high notes, it's gonna affect how I'm breathing, because everything's connected to it, right?
kinetic chain.
Hmm?
Kinetic chain.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we have to know it. You might see, we're talking about this and it's just like, oh, it's super small, but it does make a difference. Especially when you're singing high notes. Okay, great. So then we have the pectoralis, major and minor, which is which muscles? Louise. Yes. Alex Rosen, you're gonna get me fired. Okay, so there's two of them, right? The major one is outside or inside? Major.
Outside.
Outside. Right? Major. And the minor one is inside boobs. Inside
That's where
boobs.
milk is, right?
Alright. Great. So then,
Inside the rib cage?
no, it's
Still outside the rib cage?
it's still outside the rib cage, but it's inside the major muscle. Pectoralis major, right? Okay, good. So then we had the subclavian, which does what?
I think he was an emperor of Rome. Oh my god.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Anybody else?
What is it called again?
It's underneath
Subclavian.
the clavicle, I'm gonna guess.
Yes.
Or next to the,
Close your rib cage. And that's the one.
Underneath the clavicles, right? Yeah.
underneath the clavicle, yeah.
Right?
So my
So,
guess is it is an exhalatory muscle.
And it's the
no,
one.
all these are inspiratory.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry.
Second book.
It's the one that's longer on dogs, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's this one.
Oh, the little.
It raises your sternum.
Yep, because all of these like basically raise your sternum a little bit, right? A lot of them are really neck based, right? So then we had the serratus anterior.
Explains the ribcage.
Well, duh.
From
Because
back.
it's inspiration. Okay, yeah, but serratus means what?
Duh.
Saw. Saw, right? And anterior means
Front.
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 Posterior is
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Okay,
Back.
so it's this one on the side.
I feel like that's kind of in the back though.
Yeah, it looks like that.
It's got, but there's a serratus posterior.
That's like super.
So the
Right.
serratus
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and that one's an expiratory muscle.
Aha.
Okay.
That's the worst thing.
All right, so everybody got those for the inspiration?
I definitely do.
So it contracts and lifts the rib cage?
Yep.
Okay,
Just goes.
okay.
Sort of fan out all.
Yep, like that. It's like wings or something. So how many of those are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You know, 6 of them. I gotta do that.
That's manageable.
No, 6 of the secondary muscles of inspiration.
Right.
Good.
Okay.
Awesome.
We don't have to like memorize.
That's
It goes
anterior,
inwards.
so those are the ones in the front. Then we're gonna talk about the ones that are posterior too.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Great. So then there's 6 of those that are anterior. Then in the posterior, there's the ones of the shoulders. Yeah, so we get the trapezius muscles.
Yeah, it looks like a trapezoid.
Right.
Wow.
That one. Okay.
If you're ripped, you can see them from the front. It's weird.
Oh, like.
Yeah, like on Ian.
In the end.
Yeah.
It's totally gone. Okay. So, because it's like a trapezoid. Then we have the levator scapulae, which is.
By your scapula, I would imagine.
Oh, is there one underneath?
And what does levator mean?
Lift.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that little armpit muscle. Oh no, don't.
It's right there. Remember, we have to memorize these.
Which is very similar in a way, looks similar to the sternocleidomastoid, but it's
Sternocleido-
sternocleidomastoid.
Yes. It's on the back side of it. Yeah. Good.
Um,
So they're actually like antagonist muscles, right? Because the one focuses this way, the other one
Could
doesn't.
you say that word again?
Antagonist?
Minnesota.
Antagonist? Whoosh.
Antagonist.
Okay, then we have the rhomboidus muscles, which there's on this graph.
Yeah. Right, they're
Oh, it's
right,
the,
they're
it's
right,
the, on the
like,
right, on
they're
the,
right on the back.
the forward, that,
Yeah,
no.
that's that guy right there.
The rhombus.
So and there's major and minor, right?
Yeah.
Major is the.
Major's the big dude.
And miner's a
This one.
little one
Major
above
is
it.
a major third on the bottom.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I good. See, you guys are getting it.
That's
Some of it.
true. It's a.
Now.
It's
All right, good. So then we get some on the back, right? So we get serratus posterior, superior. Do you remember what these look like?
no.
It's
Fairly
the
bad
guy
though.
right down there.
These ones?
Oh,
It kind of
yeah.
was.
Chris, are those on the other picture?
You know what?
This one?
The previous slide?
No.
No, they're covered. Okay.
They're right here,
Yeah, that one is the.
but that's the inferior one.
These are all exhalatory muscles.
The inspiratory muscles.
We have not moved on to that.
Oh, we have not. Okay, right.
So the 6 were on the front side,
Mhm.
and these ones are on the back.
Aha. Okay.
So and they're in 2 groups. So there's the shoulder muscles,
Mhm.
which was the trapezius, levator scapulae, rhomboidus major, rhomboidus minor. Okay, because they can move our shoulders, so they can move our rib cage.
Yep.
And then there's the one on the back. So there's this one is on the back, serratus posterior. This guy, because if it contracts, it raises our rib cage, increases our volume. And then there's the erector spinae, which was
Those two
it's
giant.
really
It's the
long.
one that keep on the bottom.
Oh,
It's
bottom
the
one
spine
that-
area.
Yep,
The spinal
Three
set up
giant
straight.
this one.
It looks like fire.
Do we have to label the 3 individually or just label them all as erector spinae?
Just erector spinae. And then the levator castorum. These guys, the ones that are your spine right to the sides of your rib cage. Okay.
Toward the spine.
Yep.
And so opens through.
Well, remember, because muscles can only contract, right? So they're not going to contract this way all of a sudden. They're like lambda or something. Yep. Good. Okay, so that was those ones. Now we get expiratory muscles. Okay. Shift gears.
So how many were for the posterior?
Okay, so I'm just going to list them. So for the posterior secondary muscles of inspiration, There were the shoulders, and there were 4 for the shoulders: trapezius, levator scapulae, rhomboidus major, rhomboidus minor. Then there were 3 for the back: serratus posterior, superior, erector spinae, and levator castor. Okay? If you learn them in like these groups like this, that helps. Yeah, at least it helped me a lot. But because then you're not like looking at it in like this huge picture or something like that. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're gonna look at it on that program I was showing you in a second too. So we'll kind of like do a little computer dissection, which will be great. Awesome. So we're doing expiratory muscles now. Okay? So there's only 2 on the anterior, right? So we get innermost intercostals, which do what to our intercostals? In terms of lung volume. Decrease it, right? Because they contract them, and we go. Yep. And then the transversus thoracis, which is this one. So is this interior, or is this anterior or posterior view?
And
Posterior.
oh, the
This is an
So
and-
what I'm asking, is this muscle inside or outside of your rib cage?
inside.
Inside, yeah.
Inside.
So
Usually when the diagram is crappy, that means it's inside. Outside is easy.
something like that. No, it usually means it's from Wikipedia.
But it's on the anterior
free.
wall, right? It's on the anterior
Yeah.
wall.
So it's by your sternum. This is your sternum, but it's inside your ribs. Okay? It's on the so like if I was where my heart is, looking out, I would see that muscle.
Oh, great.
Make sense?
Yes.
Great. So those are the 2 for the anterior secondary expiratory muscles. Okay? I know there's a million terms. Y'all should try to learn like all of the anatomy. It's like crazy.
Never.
Yeah, don't do it. It's not going to help your singing. All right, so we go to secondary muscles, the posterior ones. We get subcostalis. These little guys. Now there's more than just those 2. Okay, we'll see when we do that on the program. Okay. But they're the little ones that contract the ribs. Yeah. And then we get the latissimus dorsi. Dorsi, sorry. This one? Just kind of a shoulder muscle. But not really. But it's on the back, right? Back down here. And the serratus posterior inferior, which is different than the superior one. How?
It's
Underneath.
Yeah, so it's
Inside.
inferior
It's lower.
instead of superior, right?
Well, but you just can.
So this one's superior, and that is a muscle of inspiration, and this is inferior, and that's muscle of expiration.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was colored in on the thing is also the same.
It's the same as this one.
Those 2 are antagonists.
It's just this part right here.
Oh, I see now. Those are, yeah, okay.
Well, they're back muscles, so they're not quite like the antagonist to these would probably be the abdominal muscles,
Okay.
more so, right?
There's just 2 varieties.
These are like
The same.
the 2, yeah,
Gotcha.
right. And they look similar, right?
Yeah.
So, but they're antagonists if you look up and down on the back.
Right, but they don't really do the opposite motions. They aren't really anti.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got it.
Good. And then we get the glute muscles, right? Yep. Cool. Everybody got that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll learn those and we'll practice them. I highly encourage you to study this stuff before we review it next Tuesday, so that when we do that, you know what you're missing. Makes sense?
And what we just covered will be what's on the test.
Yep. It's this and everything we reviewed the other day.
That's important.
So it's all the respiratory muscles. So it's like all your abdominals, your diaphragm, all that stuff, all that information in the respiratory slides. So if you like go through and look at it, all that stuff, and then all the stuff in the phonation chapter 2.
So,
Okay. And we're doing it together so that we don't have to have class tech week, right?
And you said we're just labeling it and saying like their function for the
Yep.
test?
So you have to tell me what they do, like what if they're a muscle of expiration or inspiration, and maybe a little more than that. I would
You're
prefer.
gonna see how it's related to singing or just exactly what they do? Like,
Just what they do. So, and what they do to the lung volume. So if we were going to talk about the subclavian muscle, what does it do? It's this one that goes right here.
Elevates
It
the first
increases
rib.
the lung volume and pulls the first rib up.
Yeah, so it pulls the first rib up, elevates the rib cage. Something like that, rather than just, oh, it's an inspiratory muscle, right? Make sense? Or if I was going to say like the erector spinae muscles,
Stand your back up straight.
yeah, they stand your back up straight. But they're a muscle of,
Inspiration.
right,
What?
erector spinae,
It's,
inspiration,
oh.
because it pulls your back up, makes your rib cage go. Yeah. Right, so we could say something like that.
So it's just associated with inspiration because it allows your lungs to expand more because your back is straight?
And it's not an expiratory muscle. Yeah, so like,
But
it
it
pulls,
can't just be a postural muscle?
well, its primary purpose is for posture.
Okay.
But when we're talking about how it has to do with respiration, it is an inspiratory muscle.
Okay.
Do you see how that works?
Sort of.
So we get like our abs and everything they could be primarily postural muscles too, but we use them for inspiration and expiration.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Okay, good. Awesome. So then I want to talk about breath capacity that we talked about a little bit. So there was how is the lung size proportional to the vocal fold size? So like the size of your vocal folds is inversely or directly proportional to your lung size.
Presumably, your vocal folds the larger they are, the more breath pressure needed to adduct them, and therefore the larger your lungs need to be?
Yeah, or how about this? If somebody has a lower voice, their vocal folds are bigger, and so they have bigger lungs probably because they're a bigger person.
Probably, or it's definitely.
Probably. I mean, there are things like castratos, who have huge lung capacities that have smaller vocal folds. You know, so they're proportional, right? Directly proportional. Sweet. Okay. So total lung capacity of females is probably how many liters?
3 to 7.
3 to 5. Got it. Killer. Okay, and then for males, it's what? 4 to 7. That's right. Okay. Good. And I mean, those are, everybody's different, right? So we all get different ones. So what is residual volume?
The volume that's left over when you breathe out, everything get used to sing.
Right. And why do we have residual volume?
Because
You don't
then
wanna
if you
die.
didn't, your lungs would just like shrivel up and you would just collapse.
Right. Yeah, because your lungs would collapse, right? And they wouldn't have any elasticity.
Total capacity minus vital capacity?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, you need
Total.
minus residual equals
Yeah, it is, but that's not the way I have it in the presentation. I was like, I think so. I think that's the way probably Mr. Bozeman does it. Okay, good. So we got residual volume. Then we have vital capacity, which is
what you can exhale.
What you
Vital
have to have in your lungs.
That's how much you can possibly take in.
yeah, it's the amount of air you can move in and out of your lungs. So it's the difference between the total capacity and the residual volume,
Residual.
right? Because there's always air left in your lungs.
Always.
Always, until you're dead. All right, and then the tidal volume is that, like, it's the amount of air that you're exchanging at whatever activity you're doing. So if we're just sitting around, what would our tidal volume be? I gave you a number.
0.5.
0.5, yeah, good. So it's not a lot, right? Especially if you consider that you can fill your lungs up to like 5 or 6 liters. Yeah,
That's a lot of.
yeah, that's a lot.
of them.
So we use it, that's why we can hold really long phrases, right guys? Good, and then we have this thing called pressure to phonate, PTP, which is what?
That's how much breath, blood pressure it takes to make your make a sound.
Yep, right. Good.
Ba, ba.
And that's like the minimum sound, like a croak, like that. Or is that like?
Right, you usually do it by saying pa, and going pa, 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 pa.
Got it.
And they like measure it, they have a thing they put on your face that measures how much air is coming out.
Wait, what is that?
Pressure to phonate. And it's, why is that important to singing?
Because you don't wanna
Because you don't
have
want too
a
much.
really high pressure threshold or else you can't sing anything because you're having to like shut all your air through it all the time.
Can you say that again? Like
You
read.
don't want your pressure from it to be too great because then that means that your vocal folds are getting really thick and stuff and it takes a lot of
Which means
pressure.
what?
That you can't sing anything because you're trying to like push all the time.
Because they're damaged.
Right.
Right.
What?
Oh my god.
Okay. So if you have like polyps or the swollen or something like that, your pressure to phonate will be different. So that's a good way if you're like, oh, I'm so sick, maestro, I don't know if I can sing. If you can like do pa 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 and see if it's like very different than normal, and that's a good way to tell.
Explain that again.
Okay, so if you can do it, like do it when you're healthy, and you go pa pa. You start loud and then you can go down to soft. Pa 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 pa.
In your speaking voice or were you
And
singing?
in your speaking voice. Well, it's the same voice, right? And there's a point where you have to stop making vibrating vocal folds, right? Okay, and so if that happens sooner, your vocal folds are probably swollen and injured or something. Okay.
If that happens smooth.
Sooner.
Oh.
We're playing loose.
Is that like what pitch? Any pitch?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But you should do it to how you feel it, right? So they'll actually do that, like when you go to speech pathologists, that's a test they'll do on you. And you can quantify it and everything, but you know,
What is soon?
soon.
What is like too soon?
Sooner than you would normally.
So you have to start with the baseline.
So-
You have to like.
Yeah, so like you do it when you're healthy, and then you're like, oh, if I go pa pa pa, that's too soon.
Okay.
Okay. So we also do it like if you sing and your voice cracks. Yeah, because you're sick, it's the same thing. Okay. It's just probably a safer way than trying to sing a high C and see like, let's see if this works today. Okay, great. Awesome.
Wait, that's definitely always how I test it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so we got that? That was respiration combined with what we reviewed before. All that abdominal thing. Okay? We'll go over all this again on Tuesday too. So we'll study that and hopefully you can answer the questions more quickly. Okay?
I agree, that would be better, I would hope.
Quicker is better.
Awesome. So let's review phonation now. Okay, guys?
Good.
Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. I'm just making sure everybody's on the same page with me. All right. So how big are our vocal folds?
Like 0.5 and 0.7 millimeters.
About the
It's
size
like
of
a
And 22
Ooh, I don't think anybody's getting it right.
Sacagawea doll.
5 to 7 centimeters, right?
Susan B. Anthony.
They're
looks like
point like 1.17 ish. So mine are like as big as my thumb. That's how long they
a-
are.
How big is your thumb?
Mine's like 1.7.
So thumb size.
0.17, sorry, so it's like 17 millimeters.
Wow. What's up, dude?
So it's really
A lot
low.
more than it.
There are tacos if you want some, Joey.
Yeah, go have a taco.
Hey, while you're down, we maybe talk.
So really little, they're like this big, yeah?
Oh, you mean.
How
We
big
all-
is that?
Could you use a
0.17
US currency
centimeters.
simile?
Let's see if we can find one on the internet. Can somebody Google something? How wide across is a dime?
I'll just measure the change in my purse. I don't know the
In
How wide is
metric.
it that?
All Stephen Liberty dimes
are
You were
0.7
saint.
inches in diameter.
Oh.
What's that?
17 millimeters.
That's, so they're as big as a dime. Those are the big ones.
But you just said.
But that's for the women. Yeah, you did.
0.17 centimeters, right?
0.17 centimeters is definitely not the same as 0.7 inches. Right.
So did she have the wrong metric conversion?
I
Male
think
vocal folds.
Or did you say 1.7?
17 and 25.
It says 0.7 inches. But
Are you
just
talking
said-
about a dime? Like how?
I was just asking. Ian wanted to have a
Wait,
US
did you
currency.
mean 1.7 centimeters?
Ian can look that up on his
0.17.
17 is like a big woman or a small man.
1.17 centimeters.
18 millimeters in women, 22 millimeters in men.
Oh, yeah, so this is right. This says 17.9 millimeters. It's
Yeah.
a dime.
Right.
So it's like a
I
lake.
don't know what that means.
Okay, I don't know. Okay, sorry. Okay, so it's about the size of a dime. Okay, very little. That's how long they are.
It says 0.7 inches.
Something's wrong. Okay, so we have three different things that happen. What is our glottis?
Is the space between the vocal folds?
Yep, exactly. So it is not a physical structure, right?
Or that-
Correct.
It's a
Yep.
space.
So if I ask you something like, what muscles make up your glottis?
Right.
You'd be
Hold
like,
on.
the air
Trick
muscles,
question.
The air muscles.
like that.
Exactly. And, okay, we have ventricular folds, which are,
Mouse balls were like with the dogs.
yep, makes you growl, right?
He's gonna get
The
that.
dog.
The death metal singing. Okay. And then our epiglottis does what?
It
It
covers
helps
your
to-
thing when you swallow.
Yeah.
You know
Yep,
what's-
good.
You go all went like this.
It just flops around.
We'll just do this on
It's
the
just a big
motion.
floppy thing.
You can see this.
It protects the airway from swallow. For swallow.
Right, exactly. Conjunction. Okay, good. So then, when it comes to like covering our vocal folds, we have the epithelium and the mucosa, which is what?
Layers of the vocal.
Layers of
Epithelium is a layer of
Oh,
skin,
yeah.
the mucosa is a mucus layer.
It's the same thing.
What?
Mucosa and epithelium is the same thing.
Yeah, it's just that the cells are smaller and farther apart.
Almost.
Or they just have to.
Okay, there is some confusion with this.
You mean
The
they're
epithelium-
similar structures, or you mean they're the exact same thing with two different names?
They're two different names for the same thing.
Aha.
Like that death capsule.
What?
Can you continue to explain? I'm really
Yes. Okay, so the epithelium is what is on the outside of your vocal folds. That's what touches. Okay? So the lamina propria is the layers underneath the epithelium.
Right.
So remember, it's like your skin on top of your muscles.
Mm.
So there's muscle underneath, and then there's three different layers of the lamina propria that have different viscosities. Right?
The epithelium is the mucosal layer on the top.
Yep. Right.
But it's not mucus.
It's not mucus, it's like skin.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like.
But it's sort of halfway between the liquid and the solid.
Yeah, right. So it's like jelly-y and it does waves and stuff.
It sounds like.
Right.
Are we clear on that? Tommy looks confused.
I am, but I'll just read about it, don't worry about it, we could wait last time on.
No, it's okay. Okay, do you have a question about it? Or okay?
No, I'll get it.
Okay. I mean, they're just structures, right? So it's the skin on top of your muscles. That's the epithelium. And then the muscles underneath have three different layers. The lamina propria are the layers.
So it's like contacts. And then if they
Yeah.
get dry, they get undesigned.
Totally, right. You have to keep them liquid. Good. So that was all that. And then the vocal ligament runs through which part of it?
The lemon.
Yep, right. And it's actually the first layer. Okay, good. So then we talked about the models for how our voice works, and there were three of them. Does anybody remember them?
Myoelasticity.
Kind of, almost.
Meiosis.
Myoelastic.
Aerodynamic.
Aerodynamic. Good. So that's the first one, okay? Which is, can somebody explain it to me?
Balance.
Muscle gets like taught like a rubber band type.
That's when the pressure increases, so it goes through, but then it decreases again, so then the chords come back together, but then it
Right.
increases to make them hard.
So what, is there like a good analogy for that?
It's like the balance between.
It's the same thing as the airplanes, but there's a better one.
Antagonization and-
It's like a hose.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have the hoses open and water's going through it, it's really easy to squeeze. But if there's no water going through it, it's a lot harder to squeeze, right? Because there's pressure on the outside. Make sense?
Yep.
So that's myoelastic aerodynamic because myo is muscle, elastic is tautness, and aerodynamic is the air. And you need those three things for it to happen, right? Because it has to be, the muscles have to make it taut together, elastic, and then aerodynamic, the air going through makes the pressure change. And so they come together, right? Cool. Alright, so then we have the one mass model after that, right? Which is which one? So these are increasing on top of each other, right? So we have myoelastic aerodynamic, that's just thinking, that's how it works. And then we have the one mass model, which helps the vocal folds close again, but why?
Because of the difference in pressure on either side of the vocal folds.
Which side?
On the Top, side,
top and bottom, right?
bottom.
Yeah, so because when the air goes through and it closes, then there's low pressure on top. So the Bernoulli effect makes them come together, and that's why it's a wave. And not just, right? Okay,
Yeah.
does that make sense to everybody?
Yep. Consider my memory job.
I just feel like this is the one everybody's gonna miss. Alright, 3-mass model is the next one on top of that. What's that one?
The other one that also
Front
has
to
a
back.
size.
Front to back, right? So why it opens asymmetrically. And why is that? Because the muscles are taught at different places. So you know, like when you stretch a rubber band and you like play it, it like vibrates more in the middle because it's not as taut as it is on the ends. So that's basically why. Cool. Yeah. Okay, good. So then we have structures we got to talk about. So hyoid bone, hyoid. What's that?
That's the bone that it's attached to.
Right. And how many bones do we have in our
Only one.
voice?
Why?
One. Hyoid bone.
You
Thyroid's not a bone. It's cartilage. Who said it was a bone?
Well, your thyroid is technically a gland.
Huh?
Never mind.
Well, yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, just to remember how we talked about the different layers in the lamina propria?
Sorry, that's the theme for the class. Thank you.
Yeah, sweet. Okay, so that's our hyoid bone. Then we get the thyroid cartilage, and there's different parts to the thyroid cartilage, right? That we should be able to label. So we get our Adam's apple, which is where?
The original.
Here. Right up here, right.
Right, not thyroid, cartilage.
Huh?
Right?
What?
No, I don't know. I
What?
was just saying, I said the apex of the thyroid cartilage.
It's what's right here, right?
But that's what it
Yeah, but
is,
are,
right?
can you say
Sure,
that on a
yes.
test? It's what's right here with arrow to side.
I will have you label it on a picture.
On a picture. Okay.
And tell me, I won't have you tell me what that is because it doesn't have a function,
No.
right? Yeah, okay.
There isn't like an official like anterior thyroid peak, or something, it's just Adam's apple.
Well, there's the anterior commissure,
Well, there's
which
that.
is what? It's how it like dips in the Adam's apple.
That's taking a point.
Commissure, right?
That thing.
It's this part.
Yeah.
Good, okay, now we gotta shut that up because there's more questions. Okay, then we get the superior horns, which are,
In the back.
but what does superior mean?
On the top.
On the top.
On the top, because there's inferior horns.
Which attached to the cricoid cartilage.
Yep, and they're on the bottom and attached to the cricoid cartilage, which makes it so it can tilt, right?
Yeah.
So if I asked you to explain what the inferior horns were for, you could say that they attach to the cricoid cartilage.
So that it
Let
can
it
tilt and make head voice.
Yeah, good. Awesome. So then we get cricoid cartilage. That's which cartilage?
On the bottom.
Yep, and it looks like a signet ring that sits down there, and the fat part's in the back, posterior, right? Then we have the arytenoid cartilages, which are Tommy's favorite.
Little triangles.
They're the triangles, right? The wizard's hats.
And they attach directly to your vocal folds.
Yep. The sleeves. That's what I'm gonna remember. Good, okay. So those are the things that articulate to open and close your vocal folds. Yep. So we talked about the epiglottis, and your trachea is
That's your breathing.
your breathing pipe that goes down from your vocal folds, right,
In your lungs.
into your lungs. So then we get 3 different membranes that are in our larynx, right? So the top one between the hyoid bone and the thyroid is called what? Thyrohyoid membrane. Good. Awesome.
Yeah. So when you put the words together, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, totally. Most of this stuff is like that. That's why. Okay. So we got that one. Then we get one between the thyroid and the cricoid, and it's called
Thyroid membrane.
membrane. Okay, because it can't be a muscle, right? So we got to make sure we say membrane.
It's just a membrane.
Is it that little red ship in the?
No, that's a muscle. That's the cricothyroid muscle.
Oh,
It's like this.
oh,
right?
right, okay,
I
great.
can feel that.
So then we get And then there's another one called the aryepiglottic fold, which is what?
Is that your false vocal folds?
No. So it's what's attached to your epiglottis. And it's like the membrane that goes around your epiglottis. So when it closes, that's what closes.
It's the collar one.
Yeah, it looks like a collar. There's a good picture somewhere in here. Come on. It's like this thing.
Oh.
So this flaps down on top of it, right? Pretty cool. Cool?
So cool.
Awesome. So then we get vocal ligament, we talked about that, and adduction is,
When the chord starts.
and abduction is open. Abduction. Okay, cool. Now we get back to listing muscles. So intrinsic muscles would mean muscles that are inside of our larynx, yeah? Awesome. So we get the thyroarytenoid, which is short is as TA, but that does what? What
Short
muscle is that?
Thickens it. It's your vocal folds themselves.
Yes. Good. So it's your actual vocal folds, right? Then we get cricothyroid.
Those are down here and they stretch your legs down and forward.
They tilt it,
Yeah.
right? Because of the articulation of the cricoid with the
Interior horns. Posterior, yeah, like the
inferior.
inferior horns.
Yeah, right. Good. Everybody got that? So, somebody besides Cody, our TA muscles are for what part of our voice?
Chest.
Chest. And then our CT muscles are for head voice, right? And we can mix those together, right? But there's a point where they stop mixing.
Yes.
Because it also has to do with, we didn't talk about this so much, but your chest voice is when they're like floppy and together, and your head voice is when it's a very thin kind of thing. I think we talked about it more when there's registration. Because like whistle register, they're actually open, and it's like you're whistling through your vocal folds. And then like fritone is when they're not even, they're just all. Okay. But that's not. Good. So we got that. So then we have the lateral cricothyroid muscle. So what is it? It's going to do something to the
Is that the one that
arytenoids.
finished closes?
Oh,
finishes
yeah.
closing?
It rotates.
Did I call it cricothyroid instead of cricoarytenoid?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Crico, crico.
That's the one that finished closing them.
It's arytenoid. I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna
You
fix
call
it.
it LCA, but
Well, that makes.
Yeah, LCA. It's lateral cricoarytenoid.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
What is it? Lateral crico.
Arytenoid.
And that's the one that makes them all the way closed. It's a grown-up same muscle.
No. what's
Nope.
that?
It's not.
That's in between the,
Oh.
yeah.
That one. I'm gonna edit it on here so I don't forget. Can't spell. So it's this one. So when it pulls this, what does it make it do?
Closes it.
Closes it, right? It's not the big person muscle, but it just does what? Abduction or adduction? Adduction to your vocal folds. Yep.
That's the big person muscles, the interlude.
Yep. Good. This guy brings them together.
Mm-hmm.
And so a really great way to think about that, remember, is thinking about it with like these two things. LCA muscle makes them close because it pulls from here up, right?
And this one takes a while to mature, right?
Yep. And so they don't get that closure all the time. Oh, that's got it right here. Good. So then the next one is the posterior cricothyroid. Does what? Cricoarytenoid. I wrote them all wrong. That's the one that opens them up.
Oh.
Right? Sweet. So I'll pick that later. Now we get our swallowing muscles.
Boo.
Aryepiglottic muscle, thyroepiglottic muscle. Those are the ones that open and close our epiglottis, right? So that one closes it, this one opens it. Yeah? They exist. I know, it's crazy. And then we have our false vocal folds, which are also called
Ventricular.
Ventricular, good. Then we talked about onset and offset. So we had 3 different types of those, yeah?
Yes.
And what were they?
Breathy, glottal, and
And
coordinated.
balance.
Balance, yep, something along those lines. I'm not 100% strict about what exactly we call them, but just don't say like breathy and then like
Good.
good or something, you know what I mean? Yeah, good. So they're actually like hard, soft, and balanced for onset, okay? Those are the ones we have. And then flow phonation is when that's together while we're singing, is balanced onset while we sing. And then we have offsets of those too, right? Because we can go and all those. And we have examples of them. We all understand that. I think that part's pretty easy with all this. Yeah. Okay, cool. Getting some blank stares. I know it's long. All right, so we have flow phonation, intensity. Okay, so this was the advanced concepts part, right? So intensity. Why? So how do we sing louder is basically what this is about, okay? So if the air, so one way to sing faster is to move our air faster, and what does that do to our vocal folds?
Makes them vibrate faster,
Makes them hit harder,
hit harder to,
So that's
right?
pushing.
Because so this, or this, is soft,
yeah.
but is louder, right?
More force.
Because, right, because if there's faster air going through it, there would be less pressure, so they would sound together harder, right? So that's part of the reason we can sing louder, okay? Then there's another one, which they get thicker, and why is that louder?
Because it's more space.
Right. So it's like if I do one finger,
More surface area.
right, yeah, good. So thicker and faster air is how you get louder pitches. And thicker is like chest voice, right? So when we're singing like super loud soprano high notes, if we want it really, really loud, we have more chest voice in it. That's some idea of it, right? It's thicker at some point. That doesn't necessarily mean chest voice, but it's thicker.
Sit on it. And as much air as you can through it.
Right.
Right.
Seems healthy.
So it's a combination of those two. And then pitch is affected by, is created by the vocal folds how?
Thickening and stretching.
Right. So thickening makes the pitch do lower, and stretching it makes it go higher.
And your thyroidnoids control that.
The thyroid retinoids do what to your voice?
Well, I know that that's your chest voice, but which ones control pitch?
They both do.
Okay. They both do.
The cricothyroid controls it more,
Oh, okay.
okay,
Okay.
than the thickness, but it kind of,
Okay.
yeah. We have the rubber bands. We're almost done with these guys. Oh, we got a whole other page. Okay, extrinsic muscles of our larynx, okay? So we had, what are they all attached to? Except for the constrictors. Hyoid bone, yeah? Good. So we had the constrictors there are 3 different ones of them. What were their names?
Superior constrictor,
Yeah,
middle constrictor,
yeah,
and the inferior constrictor.
inferior, great, okay, cool. So we had those 3. And then if I asked you on the test, which muscle opens your throat, you would say?
None of them.
None of them, right? One of them opens your esophagus, but your esophagus is what you swallow down, right? So like that doesn't really open your throat. Just tell me.
Which one does that?
We haven't talked about it
Oh.
for a reason, because it doesn't matter. Oh, okay, good. So we get thyrohyoid. What's that one do? So these are laryngeal elevators, okay? So we're going to raise our larynx now. Because these are extrinsic muscles, so they can only make your larynx go up or down. Okay?
So they constrict and the larynx comes with it, up to the hyoid bone.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So most of these, again, because they're secondary muscles to what actually is happening with what we're talking about, which is phonation and singing, their primary purposes are to actually do other things, right? Okay. So if we get a thyrohyoid, what does that one do?
It's a swallowing muscle, probably.
Yeah.
Raises the larynx.
So but it goes between what?
Thyroid cartilage and the hyoid bone.
Yep, exactly. Good. So then we get our digastric muscle. Oh, we had a picture of
That's
that.
the one with two
Two
bellies.
tummies.
Two tummies, yeah, digastric, and it's where? Like, so if it was on this, it's on this picture.
It's the
I
one
might
from the
think it
chin
was
to the
the
private
tongue.
ear.
It's this one, right?
Yes,
So that one does what?
also raises your.
That's where it is your larynx.
It raises our larynx secondarily, but what does it do primarily?
Pulls your jaw back.
Oh,
And
yeah.
opens it.
Wait, this is the thyroid or the digastric?
Digastric we were talking about.
Oh, it's just not slide.
Yeah,
Are
I'm
we
just
go-
not on that slide.
Are we
Here,
gonna
I'll
need
be
to
on
be
this
able to tell the difference between the anterior? Oh, I guess that's really easy to do. Never mind.
Yeah, you don't really have to tell the difference. You just have to know that there's two
That
parts of
there's
it.
two parts.
But that'll help you identify it because there aren't other muscles that we're talking
That
about
have
with
two
this. They have two
parts.
parts, right?
Got it.
Yeah, good. So stylohyoid, this one? Yeah, so it's gonna raise up our larynx when we swallow.
Yep.
That's part of it. Good. And then with mylohyoid,
Yeah, it's,
It's from the chin to.
Yep.
Yes.
this one. It's the floor of our mouth, right?
Yes.
You see how it's like right here?
Yeah.
But that goes all the way around there. Okay, great. Geniohyoid, part of our tongue.
From the chin to the hyoid.
Yeah,
Right?
right here.
Genioglossus.
So if we wanted to like make the floor of our mouth really tight and raise our larynx up with our mouth closed, that's the muscle you use. Can you feel that?
Is
So
it
what's
just
the
me or
difference
is that-
between the purpose of that one and then the previous one that also said that it stiffens the floor of the mouth?
This one is thinner.
Okay.
That's like it's the floor of the mouth.
That's why there's
So it's like almost like the bottom layer of it,
Yeah.
kind of.
And then this one is more, so it's actually in, like it's in here, right?
Okay, I see.
So many years I've thought this.
Yeah, good. Sweet. Hyoglossus, that's this guy, right? The back of our tongue. So when we do voice lessons, people talk about the back of your tongue, they're talking about this muscle, probably. But I mean, they're really talking about where that is in your mouth, right? But that gets positioned by this muscle and this muscle, which, what's this one called?
Myohyaloid.
Genioglossus.
Oh.
Yeah. Right, I mean, it says it right there. Okay. So those control where the position of your tongue is, right? So those ones are really affect tongue tension a lot. And notice, they're attached to what?
Your chin.
Your hyoid bone.
Your hyoid bone,
Which
Your
raises
hyoid
your
bone.
larynx.
which raises your larynx. So if you have tongue tension, what does it do?
Raises your larynx.
Which does what to
Well,
your
you
sound?
also have tongue tension that depresses your larynx.
Yeah, it screws with your formants, right?
You know,
Because it makes your tube shorter.
and then sometimes people like try to yank it back down with other muscles.
Oh yeah, I know, it gets really fun. Right, okay, so we're getting like how this all works together, right? It's just, it's a ton of terms, I know, but what's up?
I thought like high sopranos had to raise their larynx at some point.
Yes,
Say the same thing for tenors though.
That's what I do.
and the 6/9 for tenors, so like
Is
that,
that?
so like that is like fair game to do, people do it all the time, right? Because we're trying to sing a high note and we want it to sound like a certain way. We don't want to necessarily do that all the time,
Right.
right? And certain, we all know singers that go up and go, ah, to like high notes, and it sounds really bad, right? Me too, got it, we've all done
I
it.
was just scratching
I was joining the club. We've got a club guys. Alan?
Oh, yay.
You know,
Exclusive, nobody else is invited.
that's right. Nobody else raises their larynx.
Sing well.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so we see how that all goes together, right?
I want
You guys can get hoodies, they're $60.
All right, so then we get laryngeal depressors. So that was the whole list of the laryngeal elevators, which raise our larynx, right? That's how we're categorizing them. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. Yep. Nope. Good. They're all listed on there. Remember, I had them like.
And those are
Oh,
all
no,
the
no,
tongue
listen.
muscles, so we're done with the tongue.
No.
Oh,
No. Tongue muscles come later. There's some of the tongue muscles. We'll talk about them again. Okay.
oh,
Because there's all the muscles like on the dorsum and all these ones
oh, right.
that we gotta talk about that stuff. But that's in a different chapter. Okay. Good. So we're at depressors now. Okay. There's 3, right? Sternothyroid, sternohyoid, omohyoid. These ones are pretty easy because they're kind of just like right in front. of us, okay? So I'm not gonna ask you about it, they're just like, this one's sternothyroid, goes to the bottom of the throat, thyroid, sternum, right?
Yeah.
Depresses our larynx. Sternohyoid, same one, but it goes to the hyoid bone. Depresses our larynx, because it pulls the hyoid bone down. Omohyoid, down here in the shoulder, because shoulder is amo.
Amo.
Up to our hyoid, depresses our larynx. Okay.
Okay.
Right here? I think that's just, they're just delineating it.
That's just a bad picture.
That's
Yeah.
your connecting muscle shoulders.
Good, so laryngeal position we talked about. So when babies are born, their larynx is about where in their,
They're up higher.
to their spine. So like, about which vertebrae?
3.
Yeah, like 2. Good, and ours is at, of which ones?
The cervical spine.
Cervical spine, right? And then our, when we are adults, it's down to where?
5 or 6.
Like 7. So,
7, 2 and 7, I can
yeah,
remember.
2 and 7, or 3 and 7.
Just like that.
And that's why you can see their epiglottis sometimes, because it's so high? No, yes, okay.
That's part of it.
Parts of it, not all of it, okay.
It also can be like really big and
Oversized.
whatever.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
You know, you can have like your tongue, your frenulum,
Yeah.
which is like that can be like attached all the way up to
Oh,
your,
yeah.
and you have to get it like cut. So, yeah.
Not
So
sure.
this- Okay, so we had tracheal pull. What is tracheal pull?
Frenulum is
Where your trachea is.
there are many of them.
How is your okay? So tracheal pull is why your larynx goes down when you breathe.
Right,
We all know that, right?
I remember that.
When we breathe in,
I don't remember that.
it goes down.
Feeling the sensation.
We can. Why does that happen?
Because when you inhale, some of
Because
the
of the
muscles that are attached to your larynx pull down.
Well, yeah. Okay. So our lungs are attached to our trachea. Our trachea is attached to our thyroid. Blah blah blah. It's all attached. So when our diaphragm pulls it down, it's pulling down everything. So it's basically our diaphragm pulling our larynx down.
Got it.
Okay.
It's breathing.
However, we don't call that a laryngeal depressor for some reason.
But it's not depressing.
It's not depressing. It's happy.
Oh, I see, yes.
Yeah. All right. So that's tracheal pull,
Got it.
and that's a big part of the reason when you talk about that is like the argument about where your larynx should be when you're singing, because everybody says you're supposed to have a low larynx, right? Okay. So they say, oh, tracheal pull, it like goes down and it should stay there when you sing, but it really should just be like even, right? So you shouldn't have tension between the laryngeal depressors and the laryngeal
It
elevators.
should be suspended.
Yeah. And you have to have some kind of tension because you have to be able to control things, right?
But the tension should be.
Yeah.
Minimal.
Rather than going, you know,
Right.
or something. You can't.
I'm familiar with
That's really the best thing you can learn from muscles, right? Okay, great. All right, and then we had the 2 nerves, right, that we talked about.
Yeah.
What?
That's my hair, that bring back today.
Oh, you learned that today? Okay. But there's the one controls the CT and one controls the TA muscles, and one's longer than the other one. Might have to do with vibrato, right?
That's right.
The other
Period.
one's controlled.
Hypothesis.
Great. Okay, what time is it?
Yeah, we still don't really know for sure what vibrato is, right? Or like why it happens.
I mean, it really has to do with like the muscle tension and it changing,
Well, yeah.
because it can't,
Like, there's not like a, oh, we finally figured out vibrato.
they're pretty sure about it.
Okay.
I always
mean,
thought,
yeah.
wasn't the Bozeman thing, like, anytime you have muscular effort, muscles eventually start
That's what I thought.
trembling?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
When you lift your knee.
That's the muscle tension
Yeah.
thing. But there are other things that deal with it too, you know, because there's the difference, you know, when we make those waves, and then there's like the 3 mass when it goes like front to back and all that. So there's like all this stuff that happens to these waves that doesn't keep it like super even, you know.
Mhm.
It's
And that we
not-
don't fully understand.
Yeah. I mean, well, they pretty much know about it
Okay.
these days. You know, a lot of these textbooks are, because remember when, so like when I took this class, it would have been 8 years ago or something like that. And this, when I took the Bozeman class. And so like this book wasn't even out, you know, and so like a lot of this knowledge was like 10 years previous to that. So we really only like teach in class what we've known for about like 8 or 10 years already, because it takes that long to get in the classroom. So there is a lot of things that they can, you know, like they do things like they'll like take a pig's larynx and they'll like cut it in half and they'll put it on glass and like put high-speed cameras on it and then like blow hot air through it and see what it looks like. So I I've seen videos like that.
Remind me to
Okay.
get more push on that.
So we have 10 minutes. Do you guys have any questions? You want me to explain something? I want to answer questions for 10 minutes. If nobody has them. Seriously?
It's,
To let it,
yeah.
settle, it's not just in us.
Yeah, that's okay too. Yeah, what's up, Chelsea?
I was trying to think through and answer my own question before I asked it. But
Did
mine
you
was
answer?
already turned on.
Okay, so what I want to do next class, I'll show you guys some of this right now. So remember there's this Human Atlas program that I had for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so if we go to like our musculature system and we go to our thorax, we can take this is not a good one. So we can take this and we can actually go through and like dissect it together and talk about which muscles are what. So we can go and say,
In her bag.
she was. We can like look at which muscle is this one,
Pectoralis major.
right? And so I can click it,
Pectoralis minor.
major. See, it says it right there.
Wait, you said this is on our site?
Yeah, you can. It's for Windows though, so you have to get it. And so I can go hide,
Oh.
and I can see underneath it, and we get what's this one?
Minor.
Yeah.
Wait, how do we get to it if we don't have a Windows?
If we don't have what?
Windows.
Make a friend.
We just
Make a friend.
I